think this is Casa Professa church. It's supposed to be spectacular inside. But you can say when you first walk in here is wow. Certainly it looks like it's all been restored, but it's wow. I think this is Baroque, and that's probably a colossal understatement. The camera is quivering because it's like a perpetually fat person walking in a hungry state into a smorgasbord. It wants to consume the entire place in one fell swoop, and you can't do it with the camera. So I'm just letting it fly through these spaces, and then we'll explore with great detail. It simply is wow. I'm going to go up on top here so we can get a closer look. Mainly focusing on the central panels. And I've reorientated myself so that they will be correct on the camera. Look at the gorgeous colors. Are those original colors? Now, I've reorientated you to give you some information. We're now facing the altar, but these are brilliant new colors because, as I said to the girl, one of my bombs apparently fell on it during the Second World War and wiped out this portion. But the area that we'll see down there, see the much more muted colors, those are original. While not religious, which is a phrase of such understated magnitude as to bring this entire edifice down into crumbled rumble, I can well imagine how a person coming in here with a simple mind, not to mention mine, well, feeling somehow that they really were experiencing what heaven would be like, filled with this apparent, inherent beauty in endless magnitude. There aren't enough superlatives for me to throw at it spontaneously to reflect the feeling you have when you're here. Okay, at this position I'm about dead center underneath the cross of the cross, looking straight up into the dome, and I'm just going to pan down. So those colors are the original colors, perhaps restored, but original nevertheless. I've moved the telephoto so we're right up inside the dome, looking at that top portion, and get a closer look at some of that stained glass. Again, underneath the dome, I'm shooting down the right side of the transept, if that's the right term. In other words, the right-hand side of the cross, just so we can see it. And now the left hand. And don't be alarmed, I'm going to focus in on detail in a few minutes. And in case you didn't get the point of this church when you were sitting facing me with the altar behind me, I'll give us this perspective that you have on the way out. And now up to that stained glass panel. Often in churches, the organ's on one side of the altar and the choir on the other. Here, I think the organ fills both sides, and I think the choir might have been up in these side balconies. In most churches, the organ's on one side and the choir on the other. In this church, the organ's on both sides of the altar, if you will. And then I think the choir may have been installed in these balconies here, but I can't be sure. I'd love to hear that organ play in this space. As I approached the altar space, I just wanted to pan this floor. Because remember, in most cathedrals, in the early day, there were no pews. You stood. And so this would have been visible, particularly to the early arrivers on a church day. All of the floor would have been seen in its glory. And you can't approach the altar, but I went back and specifically asked if I could, so I would not be disrespectful in doing so. And you can. And so we're not disrespectful. And we'll go behind the altar because that is the rarest of places for us to see. Now, in many churches, there's the iconostasy, which just about at this point here would be a solid wall that we could not see behind intentionally, in essence to enhance the mystery between the real world today and the world of heaven, which theoretically was behind the screen as seen by parishioners. Okay, now we're back inside here. For those who work in the church, like Duke once did as an altar boy, maybe this is your access to the candles. In probably one of the most revered places to be buried in this church, more so than even the crypt would be here, which is where Paolo Achilles is buried, apparently. Now soak in this three-dimensional sculpturing and recognize that most people never saw this, not this part. You wonder what the story is. Certainly it looks like a Roman centurion of some sort, but why the man with the cask? Does it somehow have something to do with wine? And look at this little set piece. And here another. These being almost throwaways in the decoration, but look at the work that went into them. And what did they symbolize? Must have been something to the artist. But in this phantasmagoric of sculpture, it's completely lost. Here another with a woman and a horse. And what's the significance of the man with the fruit? Again, looking at the soldier. Panel, if we look closely, it's not hard to figure what it's about. These angels are doing some serious damage with hammer and fire, not to mention some serious damage done with a sword to these people who are en route to or have arrived in hell. A bell for signifying something. Now I'm directly underneath the stained glass picture of Jesus. Here we're looking at Jesus, probably God on the right. Mary on the right, holding the baby Jesus, it looks like, but almost in the situation that she did after the crucifixion. Now I've turned around to look at the other side and its sculptures. No doubt Mary at the top. And here it appears that a Roman centurion, notice the bearer of the sword standing behind him, is accepting some offering from a religious leader, perhaps showing the acquiescence of the church to the power of Rome. And what do these little sets of guys imply? Notice here again, you scoundrels, that the angels are precipitating some really nasty stuff onto something. Now this something here is curious. It's not one of us because it has wings, but it has chains on it for some reason. So perhaps it represents the subjugation of the devil. That's possible. Here, interestingly enough, a couple of fishy things with tails intertwined. These bowls hold holy water for the priests as they entered to do their thing. This is interesting. He's holding implements that look like they're design implements, like what an architect might hold. But here it looks like a hatchet, but I think that device that looks like it's wrapped in ribbons is some kind of a scroll. All this marble looks to be as though it is a thin stone, perhaps, that's embedded in the face. What amazing work. Yikes. Here next to it, a less dramatic slab of marble.